Scott. Oh, there. How's that? Am I too high in the camera there? Nah, it's fine.
Everyone I talk to is too high in the camera.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Your Crisis Coach with the great Scott H. Silverman and myself, Fred Carroll, where we talk about everything and anything, life in general, but
yeah,
I guess officially we talk about addiction recovery, homelessness, politics. We go into it all. How are you, Scotty?
Oh, and mental health.
And mental health, which takes it. Yeah, that's everything, I guess. How you doing, Scott?
A little better than I look, Fred. Doing okay.
Yeah. Wow, you're not feeling pretty today?
No, it's I go fishing with that comment. You're supposed to say, "Wow, you look great." Oh, I feel a lot better. Thanks, Fred.
Well, I'm one of them straightforward, knock you off your pedestal types. You're looking for compliments. You come to the wrong place, young man.
Yeah, it wasn't no compliment. I was just looking for feedback. Then I set you up, and then I respond appropriately.
You match energies?
Yeah.
That's what I do. So what have you been up to? Give me a little brief rundown what Scott's been up to.
Well, my youngest came out from New York. You know, we're in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, so the holiest week of the year. And speaking of which, today's, the anniversary of the slaughter in Israel a year ago. So a lot of conversations about that today. And, let's see, the wife's doing good and oldest is doing good. We were all together as a family, which is nice. And, getting ready for October 23rd, our Confidential Recovery's 10th anniversary. I know I sent you an invite, but probably cost you more money than the event to come out and fly back. So
maybe, yeah.
We'll try to get you to zoom in.
Yeah, San Diego is expensive. It's an expensive flight. I've checked into it. It's one of them flights from Connecticut-wise, New York and stuff. It's not as prevalent as LA would be or anything. So it's expensive, but I'll get there one day. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So we're, planning on that. And of course, the holidays are coming up. I usually get pretty busy and, we have big elections in our local community coming up, potentially a new mayor and city manager and a couple supervisors and some city council members. And of course, watching the national news on what's going on with politics there. Let's talk a little bit about not necessarily politics, but the terrain right now of re-elections and what you're sensing and hearing and the feedback that, you might have. And
well, I did think of this. I actually was thinking of the show and what I wanted to discuss. Oh man, I didn't turn off my phone.
Well, it's not me calling you, just so you know. I've got I got to put mine on silent.
I didn't silence my phone. That's amateur stuff there.
Oh,
amateur.
God. Yeah, that'll be the feedback. Turn off your phone, Fred, when you're doing live shows.
That's the beginner level stuff. No, so I was thinking of the show, and one thing that bothers me greatly, whether we're left facing, right facing, whatever, just vote. At this point, this late, we all should know who we're voting for. And I don't care who you're voting for. That's your right. And just use it. But what it concerns me the most is it's gotten to the point, and this is from social media to all the highest level of presidency, where even if you have a good idea, let's say a Democrat has a good idea or a Republican has a good idea, and they both do. There's plenty of good Republicans out there. There's plenty of good Democrats, and there's plenty of bad on both sides. It's pretty equal terrain. It all falls into what affects your life the most. So my concern is if one or the other has a great idea, it's gotten to the point where it's automatically dismissed by the other side, rather than you never hear anymore like we used to, where they say, you know what, that's a pretty good idea. Let me work with you on that. So I don't see the cohesion anymore of these parties working together. It's almost like we're mortal enemies at this point. It's quite scary sometimes.
It's like a sniper waiting for a target, and they're so exhausted from waiting. Whoever walks in front of them will be their next target. Hey, you're absolutely. Imagine, wasn't it Branson? I think yesterday, the day before, says, we all just. I'm paraphrasing. I didn't hear the whole thing. That we all want land that we know that we can call ours, and we can call it home, and we can put seeds in the ground and grow things. You're absolutely. If someone were to come up with an idea today, and it wouldn't go across party lines, even if it was a miracle or even a studied alternative or a studied outcome that could result in positive things for everybody, it would it would be automatically rejected along party lines. I mean, for example, the border issue or abortion or gun control, it's like they can't even agree on what day of the week it is. And when someone comes out with a strong statement, today is Wednesday, someone argues, well, we had one last week. Why do we need this one? And you're right, the arguments and then the bullying. And, even Elon Musk, who, was at Trump's rally, who's, pretty much going wacko on his platform, even said, everyone get out there and vote, and that's practical. And I hear Trump saying it now. I don't remember him saying it the last election. He just said, just get out there and vote for me. But I think I'm hearing him even say, whatever you do, vote. Make a decision, get some information, and vote to the best of your ability. And that way, at least you can't blame somebody else because it didn't go your way because you made some effort. So
now both of us, both you and myself, live in blue states, what are considered blue states. Obviously, the blue state you live in technically matters much more than the blue state I live in, not from a personal standpoint or anything, but from a numbers standpoint. You have much larger delegates that are up for grabs.
But Fred, let me ask you. I know, and I'm sure I can speak for you. You want a roof over your head. You want food on your table. You want to be able to generate enough income so you can live and save for the future. You want your kids to be safe so they can do the same thing. I don't see a difference in the party. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants a place they can call home. Everybody wants access to healthcare. Everybody wants to be able to pay as little as possible for things like utilities and gas, so we can put more money towards more important things. So when you think about it, 90%, I think, of what we all want and do is the same. And I don't mean to speak for anybody, but I can't think of anybody who doesn't want those core things for themselves, their family, their close friends, and prosper. Can you?
No, but there are, of course, you did leave the 10%, and the 10% probably fills with personal experiences that they've had, and everybody, that's the most important thing, is that everybody has their own life. We all have our own agenda, whether we like it or not, the word agenda, but there's a reason. Like, for instance, money, I don't vote based off finances. Now, do I want more money? Of course. But I'm not foolish enough to believe that just because we're giving money to another country, that it means we're disregarding North Carolina. You could do two things at once. I mean, every day you have to take care of millions and millions. Of course, you also have to take care of overseas. Not everybody agrees with that. And they'll go as far as saying, and I talked about this on my other podcast, the dude in the hen house yesterday. I had a recent run-in with my own parent, with my own father, who is a perfectly fine gentleman and everything, but he's a huge Trump supporter, which is fine. Makes no sense to me. From his religious views, it makes no sense. But then again, it does. The Mormons do tend to vote Republican. Within their religion. But he got on me because he lives in North Carolina, and I simply just posted something saying people think they're drowning. They're not. FEMA's there. They're doing what they can. But people are failing to realize this hurricane affected more than just North Carolina. You could only have so many people in one area. You can't be in the mountains helping those 7 families who unfortunately got hammered by this hurricane when you got to go to the major parts, And my father ended up posting on it. And this is why I wasn't friends with my father. I am friends with my father. He's my father. But I wasn't socially media connected with him because he never knows how to speak properly, to me. He doesn't allow me to have my own opinion when he's the one that raised me to have my own opinion. It really messes with you. So I ended up taking it down because I could have gotten into an argument with him. We can go back and forth. And that's my point here. We could all go back and forth. I don't know if you're willing to admit that there's some listen, not everything's perfect. Biden didn't do a perfect job. There's no perfect job. Things have gone a little crazy in certain areas. Prices have gone up. I have no problem with that, but that's not why I vote. I tend to, and then the Republicans will say I'm being a softy or whatever, but I do tend to vote for people that are decent people, in my opinion. Doesn't mean I know them. Doesn't mean they are. Doesn't mean they don't become something that I didn't think they would. But I tend to lean that way. And if that makes me soft or lean right to the left a little more, so be it. I'm fine with that.
Did you get a sense from your dad where he was gathering that information to make that statement, or he just made that statement because through his eyes, he couldn't see enough support coming in quick enough?
No, first of all, it didn't even touch where he is. Maybe it touched, but he is on the coast and it kind of came up through the middle of North Carolina. But that was a question I asked in the post originally before I deleted it was, wouldn't you, if you had a news source that you claim is all knowing, wouldn't that be something you'd share with your son? Why wouldn't you call me and say, hey, you should, because he went on, see, you're too busy watching CNN and this and that. You should watch. Well, give me the link. Give me the link to your all-knowing news so I can watch it and judge for myself. And I've asked this on social media, but now I'm tired of getting into the fights. I'm tired of reading the fights. The argument is for not there. Nobody wins. Because you're not changing somebody's mind at this point, and nobody's changing mine. So the most important message is get out and vote. And I think to your mention of Trump now mentioning get out and vote, I think that's where he loses. Is a lot of my friends that are Trump supporters aren't voters, because they live in my area and they know it's a blue state and they think their vote doesn't matter. That's what I'm reading, at least. They all think it doesn't matter, but that's not true, because if you want to make it a red state, you got to get out and vote. Regardless, you can't just assume our delegates are useless. Well, they virtually are.
Let's stay with the catastrophic storm events and these floods and the damage, and it's going to cost, I don't know, billions, if not a decade. Remember Katrina, how, I like to believe that, the FEMA learned from that. So, I'm hearing that people are hearing, and I heard Trump at his rally yesterday, FEMA's not responding. And then they're taking that, and then Musk is amplifying it on X. And, the governor and the mayor, the people they're talking, of course, they're talking to people who floated up on their boat and going, do you feel like FEMA's helping you? And they're like, hey, I lost everything and I'm on my neighbor's rowboat. I get it. It feels that way. But when you hear what the experts are saying, experts being FEMA and the legislative leaders and the emergency responders coming from around the country to help, it seems like as fast as they can move, they're moving. But this event was so big, so broad, And even some of the mayors even said we had no idea that we would see this kind of rain in this period of time. And the water supposedly does more damage than the wind over time. But the divide is continuing to argue, and then the people who are devout on one side are hearing one message their way, and the other side's hearing their message their way, and there's even more dissension. So, I can hear, where people would think, "Oh, gee, my vote doesn't count." But I don't know. I'm confused by the infighting and the division that goes on. It really is scary. And I'm watching the January 6th thing and the deniers, and then the deniers of the election. Even the speaker said yesterday, when asked again, do you agree that the presidency was won by, Biden? And he said, I want to move forward. I don't want to talk about that. So they, I think it was Stephanopoulos asked him again. He said, well, look, he's been in the White House for 4 years. So he was saying, yeah, he understands that clearly he must have gotten enough votes to win, but he didn't want to say that because there's a fear that if he does, he might be putting himself in harm's way. So, when you think about, we have it on a local level, and I'm supporting the guy that's running for mayor, and he's what do they call those people? Libertarian. He doesn't even belong to, the prime parties. And the current mayor is a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, and I've known him for 20 years, and he's running on the fact that he's going to solve homelessness, but he's been running on the same platform for a long time, and it's gotten worse. So I don't even know how to, measure that in my own heart, other than something different might be something better. But, you think about a guy who's worked at it so long, he should have enough experience and enough relationships that he can flip the switch. And then, you look at our governor, and he just said, look, we've spent $25 billion on homelessness the last 5 years. And if these communities and counties want more money, they're going to have to show me where they've spent it. And I agree with that accountability. So,
Yeah.
And then he says, let's clean up the encampments. Okay. And then locally, there's 1,000 men, women, and families that are going to lose shelter beds at the end of December because of the agreements and contracts that have been made. And they're now giving out tents again to people to put them in safe areas. So it's like insane.
I think it's time. You may not agree or might run with this too. Maybe we got to change the verbiage of our intent here, because I think both you and I know, first of all, no one's going to end homelessness.
No.
So saying end homelessness is kind of like saying you're going to end dying. We know it's going to be there still. But maybe we have to start saying we're going to lower the numbers, so they go at it at a smaller bite rather than, because it sounds like when they want to end something, they throw all their money into one thing, hoping it works. And when it doesn't work, they're out of money and they don't have time. Maybe they have to start smaller, and try to create something that does truly work in lowering the numbers.
Well, let's look at COVID, for example. Once the federal government really shifted gears, or really what it was is the morbidity rate was accelerating so quickly. It appeared a bipartisan willingness to do whatever they could. I mean, clearly people didn't want to take, the vaccine. I get that. It's a personal choice. But the vaccine, the data showed, appeared to start saving lives. And they're really, it's not like you could drink more lemonade and you'd be okay. You were, I don't know, a couple thousand people a day or more were dying on a regular basis, and it was getting worse, and we had to do something, and it was global. So I believe, the federal government and the state government set up a system where they could get real-time information and get resources to where the greatest need was. So my point is, I think the powers to be, when all hands are on deck and it becomes bipartisan, they can get something done. So I believe in that. And then when I talk about the fentanyl crisis and I talk about homelessness, I talk about the fact that we've seen it done in the recent last 5 years. The federal government legislative leaders went across the aisle and basically said, we need to get people access to treatment immediately everywhere. And we need to know every single day what the morbidity rate looks like and where the needs are growing so we can get the appropriate supplies there. If someone opts not to take the vaccine, I guess that's their choice, even though science says it's going to help. That's their choice, but if they're doing it to their kids, then they're making a choice for somebody else. So my point is, I think I have hope and faith that we can fix these problems. But you're right. If we don't find a way to sit at the table, no matter what party we belong to, because when you're doing everything along party lines, if your party, I don't care what party, if your party's heading in the wrong direction, then you're going to follow them off the cliff and you won't know why. And you know what that reminds me of?
What?
The Holocaust. That's right. When the Jewish people got on the friggin' trains and they were told, you're going to this camp and 6 million people got on the trains. And I've always told my family, I'm never getting on the train. I'd rather take whatever consequences at the stop that I have to, but I'm not getting on the train to believe somebody they're going to pack me like a sardine in a train and I'm going to a better place. And
even what you're discussing, obviously it hits you personally because you are Jewish, but I could see even my own, just being honest, I don't feel the same. And I think it's just a human trait because I'm not Jewish. I don't understand any of this. To me, it always felt like I'm starting to understand it slowly by watching the right people, I guess, and listening to people like yourself, Ron Lippett. I don't know if you're friends with Ron Lippett. He wrote a very nice article yesterday. He's with Jeff Dwoskin and his brother and stuff, friends of his. He wrote a nice explanation. It was kind of a explanation of being Jewish to the non-Jewish person, because we don't know what, I've always gone through life not understanding, even though I grew up with a lot of Jewish people. I never understood this Israel. To me, they're fighting over God that they don't even know exists or not. I don't understand what they're fighting over, the purpose. So I think it gets pushed to the back burner, and it's easy for people to say, when we're talking about drug addicts, then we also get people that I still hear it. Well, tell them to just stop. I still hear that as an excuse. Same with homelessness. Well, it's their own damn fault. Tell them to get a job.
Right.
All that stigma that's wrapped around it. And we agree, we both know that those people do exist. There are drug addicts out there that cannot be saved. Okay, they're just going to kill themselves, basically. There are homeless people out there that cannot be saved because they've made a moral choice not to work when they can work, or a moral choice to live on the streets. I think you agree with that, don't you?
The only caveat I'd have is I believe everyone can be helped, but I'm realistic enough to know that through attrition, there's going to be a certain percentage, you're absolutely right, that will refuse access to shelters, don't want the structure. We see it now. And they opt, just like the people who didn't want to take a vaccine. But there are families who didn't want their kids to have the polio vaccines, the flu vaccines. And I understand it, and there's a lot of controversy around, what vaccines do to young people long term. So I get the fact that we're going to have a certain percentage that just won't or don't or can't, or the will nots or the will nots or won't nots, or, I'm not sure I will nots. So that's going to happen. There's no doubt about it in society.
But isn't that similar to jumping on the train, where maybe those people are out there saying, no, I'm not listening to this guy. I'm not jumping on his train. I don't know where he's taking me. And those people exist just like you exist, not wanting to jump on that train, and they exist in all creeds and colors and addictions and traumas. And there are people out there that don't want your help.
Well, and I think the other side of that for me is, when I say that, I'm talking about when Hitler created his mandates for his people to follow a certain rule, and he declared that we're going to exterminate this race. When there's somebody like that in charge and people opt in because they don't want to understand, or the stigma is, or denial that can't possibly happen. And then they take this side of it. But even though they're watching it happen, that concerns me. And look, to be totally candid, I see a little bit of Hitler in Trump. I think that he has this power hungry desire. And there's Putin's another one. There's a couple of global leaders who take this position. It's going to be my way or the highway. And I don't think that's the best way a leader can do their best job. Because, through attrition, I think people are still going to make their own decisions. They don't want to follow the rules. I don't like following the rules, but I wear a seatbelt and I turn my turning indicator on. I wear a seatbelt. So if I'm in an accident, hit by somebody else, or I make a mistake, I might save my own life. I put my turning indicator on because I want the person behind me to see that I'm making a right turn.
Right.
I quit smoking cigarettes because I didn't want to have lung cancer. So, but it took me, I was, 33 years old, and I'd been hearing about tobacco for a long time. So, I was in denial about it. I didn't want to jump on that train and give it up. And now I smoke cigars.
The one problem that keeps popping into my head with the politics is I'm seeing people that I assume to be good people almost willing to cut you off as a friend based off your politics. I'm seeing that. I don't like that. I'm seeing families being divided by it. And I've never seen anything like this. And it's quite shocking that a lot of it is around money. And money, I guess that's a popular tone is, I'm not making as much money as I did under him. But it's kind of sweeping everything else under the rug. And that's where my father comes into it. My father is a decent, religious, God-fearing man. And I can't wrap my head around why he thinks everything is a lie, when it comes to Trump. I can't wrap my head around why he doesn't, I understand he has a vote and it's only one vote, but he's my father and I grew up with him, and he's the one that told me ever since I was a little child, if you asked my father in the 70s who he voted for, he would get mad and tell you it's none of your business who I voted for. And that's how he raised us. It's none of your business. It's nobody's business who you're voting for. But yet now he's on Facebook screaming from the top of his lungs and he's using words. He's using those words that doesn't sound like my father's voice. He's using words like ugly words towards Kamala and stuff like that. He's using these words, and he has daughters. He has grandchildren. And believe me, my whole family's a mixed mash of left and right. My youngest is on the Trump train. It's not discussed between her and I, but I know why she is. She's young. She's impressed by money. Money is her impressionable thing. She's being told by a boyfriend or whatever that this is the problem. Biden's the problem. And she's buying into it. I get that. She's young. She's impressionable still. And she's doing, whether it's supporting her man or whatever. But talking to her isn't going to change that. And I'm fine with that. I'm glad that she's made her own mind up, whether or not somebody helped make that. But my father is more shocking. My father's beliefs really
how old's your dad?
Me.
How old's your dad?
81.
Yeah, so he's from that coupon clipping era. He was after the Depression, but at the end of the day, when you get older, I think you get a little more impatient and a little more narrow. I've experiencing that. And, I just, as a sidebar, Lindsey Graham, I think was he in Florida? I think he's Florida, right?
I don't know. I don't even know.
He went on the air and he said, because Florida's got that Category 5 coming towards them. I think it was him today or yesterday said, it's been unbelievable, the response that we're getting in a positive way. And I'm sure he is getting filleted by his constituents going, how could you say that? Well, and it's true because, politically it would be stupid for the White House, and then they went back and found some of the things that Trump did when California was having some issues with the fires, and I can't remember, Katrina, there was a couple other places that when he was the president, he basically held hostage the money, and he told his people, find out if they're voters of mine, because I don't want to give them the money if they don't vote for me or they can't vote for me. So that the political big stick, and I don't know how long it's been going on, but you're right. People will disown you in your family if you don't agree with them, and then they don't talk to each other. I can't remember growing up with anything like that ever. And when he became president, I told my kids, we have to honor the fact that he's going to be our president. You don't have to like what he says or does, but he's the president, and he's due that respect. The voters.
Yeah, but the problem, that's another problem. I'm sensible, I guess, enough that even if he wins, I'm rooting for him. If he wins, I need my president to be the best. I'm not selfish enough to hold it back and say root against him. But there's many people out there that if she wins, this woman could cure cancer and solve homelessness and drug addiction and the border. And there'll still be people that hate her because their guy's not making these. So it's always going to come with a backhand. And I just don't understand some of the people's mind, like oil, for instance, and gas prices and stuff. I guess maybe I'm too blasé about stuff because
look at Fauci. I mean, he didn't have a political agenda, at least in my opinion. He didn't have one. He's a scientist. He was a doctor. He was trying to bring what he knew. But the way it was teed up, you're right. A lot of people just said that, well, how often do you hear the term fake news? I mean, the media is the media, but the term fake news, and then you just go, oh, well, that must be the truth.
Well, it's an instant eraser, and it's not another thing that bothers me is it's not against the law to write a fake story. Me and you could write a story right now, completely made up, and there's no repercussion for it because we could put a simple little disclaimer at the bottom of that thing saying it's farcical or whatever. And you don't know, somebody that reads it may not read the whole thing. They might just read the headline, and that's why headlines grab you so much. And we do it in the podcasting world where we create a headline to try to get you to play it.
Yeah.
And it's not the best days of my life. I'm not depressed over it because I don't even think either one of them is what I would consider a great choice. I think they both have weaknesses. They both have strengths. I have no doubt about Donald Trump's business acumen, regardless of how he achieves those acumens. He's not a dummy. Let's put it that way. He's a genius marketer. You don't end up with that many millions of votes and end up president of the United States by accident.
I mean, imagine if Trump and Biden were working together, even though they didn't agree on anything, but they agreed on certain things that are best for the country. You're right. As a marketer, imagine what he could do for global influence. I mean, it's incredible. Look, he's done what he's done pretty much on his own style of doing things. And, he's obviously provided a pretty good life. But his kids, they were paralyzed and they were manipulated, and they couldn't spend money without his approval. So, but, you just said something interesting that, you don't get impacted by it. But there's a lot of people out there who are they have become so angry and so resentful. And then they dig a deeper foxhole, and they can no longer be influenced by anything unless it comes from one mouthpiece or a platform, which means if that group is wrong, and, the truth comes from investigation, and you forecast the future from the past. I don't understand where that's come from, and on my new book I'm working on, I'm talking about things like this right now because I don't understand it. I don't know how we got here exactly. And I'm sure there's even the historians don't know. They go, we don't, and you hear these, I see, and by the way, I watch Fox and I watch CNN and MSNBC and I watch independent news. I don't necessarily go on True Social and things of that nature, but I listen to Fox because I want to hear what they're saying about what they're hearing from the other side. And it's amazing how they interpret and then articulate the wording, as you said, to their audience and what they say and how they say it. I don't hear that on the MSNBC, CNN side, the belittling, the filleting, the blaming, the anger, and the name calling. It's really out of control. But clearly, they stay on the air because they have a huge following.
Right. Yeah,
So,
they do. And I also believe, I believe that Trump would have beat Biden fair and square if he just shut his mouth. I think he ruined it himself. He seems to be somebody that doesn't and I don't like that he doesn't learn from past mistakes very often. I mean, I would never root for somebody to be killed or assassinated. It doesn't even cross my mind that I didn't hope he was okay or whatever during those moments. But it's hard for me to sit back and think, I'm surprised it took this long sometimes.
okay. Fred, what was it? 10 days before the election, the first time around, when he did that recording on the bus about what he does with women because of his position? I mean, everyone in his party who had any kind of influence figured there's no way he can win after that. And look, he won. So to your point, and then he went into the White House, impeached twice, and so all they've done since he won, since 2000, this, in my opinion, this country, is they fight and they've found ways to sabotage each other's passages. And you listen to some of these conversations with Marjorie Taylor Greene. What did she say the other day? That she said it was the Democrats that caused the hurricane. I mean,
how they control, which theoretically, let's say they can. Let's say in a fairy world that they can. Why would they go after the state that they're fighting to get, which is North Carolina? Because North Carolina is very much a red state that's turning blue. Why would you want to do this damage just to lose? Because they're probably losing votes based off this hurricane and the rhetoric that goes around it. Versus the opposite. So none of it makes sense. And nothing she said.
And to think about it, there will be people technically that can't vote because they no longer have a permanent residence in the area. So there'd have to be some sort of a law change to allow people to vote who have lost their home.
Yeah. And then before we close, so we can get off the subject of it and stuff.
You just want to close to get off the subject? I want to leave on a positive note.
Well, that's what I mean. We'll close this, but I don't like my whole point of the good idea not being held up by the opposite side is a good example of the governor of Florida, who's refusing to take a call from the president. To me, that's a man that, he's refusing to take Kamala's call. And that's a man to me that was voted by his people, doesn't have his people that voted him in his best interest. Because she's the Democrat and he's a Trumper, he refuses a phone call. When that phone call could be a phone call that's going to help his people who are struggling right now.
Well, and that's clearly a mark of somebody from an observation perspective that isn't about the people. He's about a party. And I'm not even sure the Republicans in Florida wouldn't want to, if talking to the vice president, because the president's got a few other things that he's doing, plus he's retiring, and all the stuff going on in the wars around the world, you would think you humble yourself and you say, let me take that call. And, instead of getting 1,000 trucks, we need 3,000 trucks. And she takes it up the flagpole and goes to, Congress, whoever, and gets it approved because she can maybe move quicker or her team's fresher. Why would you not do that for your people? Why would you not give your constituents an opportunity to flourish and to get the resources that they need? And now the conversation's coming up about FEMA's running out of, they'll print more money, they'll allocate something. And Trump talks about how the money went to the immigrants. And then this thing in Ohio with the cats and dogs, how that friggin' thing ever got blown up. That is insane.
Well, this is the downfall of social media. Now, me and you live off of social media due to podcasting and video casting and stuff. And it's great. We live in a great country. We're allowed to speak our mind here. We could say just about virtually anything we want. If our fans or our people want to listen to it, or outsiders, they're welcome to it. So that makes our country great. There's a lot of people that can't voice their opinion. So
Right.
I appreciate that. But there's also a point where even us talking and being open and honest, all we're doing is telling the truth. We're both leaning
We're,
left.
we're, we're trying to, because I'm a firm believer. There's my truth, your truth, and that truth. Because you and I can agree 100%. People go, you guys are consorting to lie. And that's okay. That's your opinion. I mean, are you on Nextdoor by chance? Do you have
No, I'm not.
Check it
No.
out, nextdoor.com. It's in your community. It's another kind of a zip code specific way to kind of have garage sales gossip, refer, gardeners and painters and roofers and restaurants. And that's become another place for people who don't have a voice, who go on there and say the weirdest stuff. And then they have great headlines like, "Oh my God, he almost died." And then it turns out that, there was a sobriety checkpoint and someone didn't stop soon enough. But my point is, it's another platform that people are using as well. And you're absolutely right. If we were to take out social media and go back in time, because technically, look, you read the newspapers. The newspapers usually were first, and then the television stations, unless they had a lot of staff, picked up those stories and ran them. So technically, we were all hearing and seeing the same information. And now we have people who give us what they believe is the information we need to hear. And I don't, and it's interesting who these platforms are. I mean, look at, well, anyway, we've talked enough about that. So what's the
there's options. There's just too many. There's so many options, and you have the right to go on any of them, and you can get on any of them. Right. So back into the what you said, you're writing a new book right now. And when do you expect this to be released?
I'm hoping it'll probably end up being early next year.
That's okay. You're not a fast writer or anything. You also write more about stats and stuff like that. There's a lot of stats, and so a lot of research goes into your writing.
And I'm using a ghostwriter. I've told you the name of the book, haven't I?
No, what is it?
I think I have. It's called "You're Not God, That Job Is Taken."
Okay, that's a catchy little thing.
Yeah, and it's all about people who narcissistic, egomaniac, knuckleheads, ego generating control freaks. And I'm trying not to get political, and I don't want to mention names. So I'm, using doctors, lawyers, legislative leaders, our current president, our past president, campaigns, and then going into examples of how we can listen better. And because to me, ego is something that once you get caught up in it, and you mentioned earlier money. Once somebody has look at Elon Musk. What is he, the richest man in the world? He doesn't need money. Once you get all the money in the world you want, I don't know this other than what I've heard from the 1%ers, the only thing left is power. And I think those are the gods today. They think they're God. And once they get the power, they think they can control things, and then they move on to something else. So that's what the book's about. A lot of it's just what I've learned over time, my experience, and why we're not seeing systemic change, in healthcare. Prevention and education, in my opinion, is so critical. We don't do it. I mean, the opioid crisis, kids who are getting addicted, education, prevention, it's not spoken about. And, I think, one of our guests we had on recently, Denise, just saw a piece done in San Diego on Fox News through KUSI about the opioid overdose rates. And they never mentioned calling 911 after the person was given Narcan. And she sent it to me. She was so upset about it. She said, I want to get my message out. So we're working on a couple of grassroots things with her to get her message out, because she's willing to talk about it. And a lot of families aren't. They're grieving, and they don't understand why God, let this happen. And if they had a God, they may not anymore. Look, I have a strong commitment to my fellowship of recovery. And I hear it all the time. If there was a God, why did I nearly die 3 times a week for a year? It's like, well, when you put it like that, and the fact that you survived, clearly, there's a plan for you. So why not take a look at things differently? So
Yeah, it's definitely, I have that view often myself and it's usually used just to hit the ball back to that person. Somebody will say, like my father being highly religious and stuff, in my, without airing our dirty laundry, I always thought religion meant more to him than me. But I often will say, well, who caused the hurricane then? I never understood that. That would be my throwback because I know it'll get under his skin. I'll say, well, didn't God see it coming? I mean, he's the one that put it there. So,
well, yeah, that's assuming you believe in God, because I call it the God shit issue. Hey, how about this as a pivot? How about the Padres?
your Padres finally won a game last night. Beat
Finally,
the Dodgers.
It's the second game of a 5-game series. Anyway, I always like to come in at the end of a season. Then I become a real fan. But it was kind of nice to watch the enthusiasm. And the we don't see it a lot in San Diego. But with this kind of thing sets such a positive ripple effect across the community. That's great to see because everyone's talking about it now, and everyone's become a fan, and you never know what's going to happen. But it was just interesting. And then I don't know what that. Do you remember what happened in the outfield where I think it was the left fielder? Something happened. The
Jerickson Profar was his name.
Yeah.
And I guess he caught Mookie Betts' home run, and played a game kind of with the fans, but then something happened between him and the fans, whether it was racial comments or something.
But did they throw something at him? Somebody said, no, I think then they had security come out, and there was a pause in the game. The pitcher was getting cold. It was interesting because I saw him jump up and catch it, and then he turned around and did a little dance because, he almost didn't catch it because he was right amongst some fans' hands. But I never knew exactly what took place. Somebody said they threw something at him, and then that's when security was called in. But who knows? I don't know.
Definitely one of the differences when we're, you and I are approximately 3,000 miles away from each other right now.
Yeah.
Which is amazing just to say something like that. And we're talking to each other like we're in the next room. But when it comes to West Coast sports, we don't.
Just the way you say that.
Well, when it comes to West Coast sports, I'm already at bed before the game's even starting, because it's 10 o'clock here and the game's starting at 7 at your time.
Right.
But it's already 10 o'clock here. I don't even know what happened till the next day, unless I'm lucky enough to stay up and watch a game. But
if it was your team playing out here, but that probably wouldn't happen. But
no, I did like the Dodgers at one point, but now they're so greedy. They're so filled with money. I kind of rooted for the little guy, and stuff like Detroit. And I hate the Yankees, obviously. Can't stand. I even got my Red Sox hat on today, and they suck. But hey, it is what it is. Okay, why don't you tell people your phone number?
Yeah, but they got to call me, though, Fred. 619-993-2738. 619-993-2738. Give me a buzz. Let's talk. And if there's something I could do to help you, I'm here for you.
Yeah, and that's great. And people could head over, listen to us on Apple, listen to us on Spotify. You can find us on our YouTube channel. We're always looking for guests. The guests don't have to be a recovered addict, could be an active addict. The guest doesn't even have to technically be on camera.
I'd like to get somebody from the cartel. That would be interesting to talk with them about how
from the business. Well, the business structure always impresses me that's how they treat it. It's a business to them. Whether or not 10 people die in Kansas doesn't matter because the money's coming in. It's a business decision. Listen, if the cartel wants to be on the show, they're more than welcome to. And from a fair discussion even. But politicians, we need people that have power like politicians to tell us their plan and bounce things off us and let us know what's going on in our communities and stuff. But you could also go out in your own community. But we're looking for everyday people. We'll have a discussion with anyone.
Yeah, we'll talk to anyone. Yeah, we'll be your filter.
Yeah, I don't mind. It doesn't have to do with drug addiction. It could be human. I just want to see a human bonding begin again, where it's okay to have different opinions without it being a friendship ending or a family member not talking to you. I want to see the discussions.
Let's start a movement, Fred.
What's that?
What's a movement?
No, but what's the movement idea?
A movement is something I try to get involved with every day. No, a movement would be like, remember that frozen ice water challenge that people did? Well, we start to challenge people to bring, not only bring a problem, but bring a solution to the show. Don't come here and piss and moan and not have an idea what we could do to pivot, to change, to influence, to really improve the quality of someone's life. That would be cool as well, because Piss and Moan Anonymous is shutting down their 1-800-WHAM-WHAM hotline soon because they can't man it anymore. So I'd like to hear solutions, with the problems. I think that would be great.
I think it'd be great. Okay, well, that's going to be it for the show, Scott. That's it. We talked a long time. I think it was a good conversation.
I hope
it was a sane conversation. It's always good to pick your brain and be able to voice myself honestly to you without being comedic all the time and all that stuff. So this is your crisis coach with Scott H. Silverman, the crisis coach guy. You could find him all over the place. Just type Scott H. Silverman, or you could just click any of the links that are below in any video on the podcast. I include the links. Everything's there. Please share, reach out to us, write us letters, whatever you want to do, whatever's the best way for you to do it. And if nobody has told you they love you, we love you, and we will see you again next week. Okay, Scott, that's it.
Thanks, man.